Hello and welcome back to another remarkable show. I'm your host, Scott Garber, and we are focusing on remarkable people, telling remarkable stories, making remarkable impact. And I'm so excited to welcome our next guest, Tabitha Cavanagh, to the show. Tab, how you doing today?
Hey, Scott. Thanks for having me.
Oh,
I'm
man.
happy to be here.
Tab, I'm so happy to be here too. And, I think just to set the stage for everybody, guys, this is going to be the most real, authentic, genuine conversation that we've had to this date. So we've had some amazing guests on here before, but my girl Tab has stories for days that I think we can all relate to that humanizes everything we're doing. So, Tabitha, before we get going, just want to get to know you a little bit. Where are you from? What do you do? Give the listeners a little background.
All right. Yeah. So I grew up in the Midwest. That's like way back in the day. But like I say that because that's really a part of who I am, is like I really feel like that molded me. Now I'm living in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, though, and I'm in talent acquisition. I've been a recruiter and kind of transitioning over a little bit right now into more of like the talent strategy and ops side, making our recruiters better. So I'm super excited about what's to come.
It's wow, what a humble, subtle brag on yourself. You're killing the game right now. And so and I mean, look at, I think we got to start with where we met, Tab, right? So shout out to Scott McGregor, Talent Championship Council. If you guys are not a part of it, sign up and use my code, get a little kickback for that. But nonetheless, Tab, I think, I wanted to start today's conversation just on the human connection. And, it's something that me and you bonded over in the first moments of meeting each other. When you're out doing your job, when you're out meeting people on LinkedIn, what do you use? How do you get in the mindset to humanize everybody right away and get to the brass tacks of who they are as a person?
Oh gosh, that is such a loaded question.
Yeah, we're going for it.
It really is. I think it goes back way, 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 way far. I think about my life. I just wrote a post recently on my report cards. So my mom saved my report cards from when I was little, and she handed me this like thick manila envelope of report cards. And I remember thinking like, oh, gosh, mom, like you save everything and like, okay, thanks. But like, what am I going to do with these report cards? And, it took me about a month before I finally kind of came across them again. I was like, like night. I'm like, I'm gonna look through these. So I pulled them out and I started reading all of them. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy, because the teacher's comments from way back when really parallel who I am today and a lot of the things that I hear from people today. So kind of a long-winded roundabout way to get there. But I think that it's sort of always been innately in me. And I'm just super energized by creating meaningful connections. So I think I go into every conversation because I've realized that when I'm holding back, when I'm like letting that fear take over, that was no good. And so leaning into really like who I am, being super self-aware, accepting myself, that changed everything. And now I approach every single conversation with, how can I leave this interaction better than I found it? And that just like, it changed everything for me. And it's a lot of fun.
Amazing. And, you bring up something there it's the journey of finding yourself, right? And I think you talk about fear, which is false evidence appearing real. Shout out to mentor, coach, Uncle Steve Noodleberg for that one. But Tab, what's really interesting is everyone has a unique journey to find themselves. And so,
Right.
for me, it was, I had a near-death experience and I had a college, football background and then coming into the tech world. And so I'm curious, as you reflect back on your journey, was there an inflection point in your, during your life that, sort of helped you accelerate that? Or what was that notion to find who Tabitha really is?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we all go through challenges, right? And you don't really realize at the time how meaningful those can be, how big of a blessing those can be. And I think just going through like those little habits over time kind of added up to something. But for me, it was more so a bigger happening in my life that sort of smacked me across the face, like knocked me over, and made me really reevaluate and think a lot of things. So while I was, you know, the same person, right? Like I had a good heart, like I liked people, I wanted to do good things, but it's just different now. And that turning point for me really was back in 2017 when I was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer when I turned 31. And, I had a less than 2-year old, like my daughter wasn't even 2 then. Um, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. I remember when my surgeon called me and, I refused to go back to the center, by the way, back to the hospital. I was like, I'm hours from you because I drove far to have my surgery. I was like, you're just going to call me when you have the results, please. And we'll talk about it over the phone. I'm not driving there for bad news. So he told me, and I remember laughing and I was like, oh, stage 3, that does not sound good. Okay, here we go. So that's kind of like, how I first handled it. And I just was thinking, like, am I going to see my daughter graduate? And it wasn't graduate from college. It was like, well, I see her preschool graduation. Well, I see her kindergarten graduation. So it was a lot of things like that for me, just going through chemotherapy and coming out on the other side and being like, what is your life going to look like now? What are you going to do? What is life after cancer? Because there's not really an after cancer, but in my brain at the time, that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking, where do I go? And life accidentally threw me into recruitment and I haven't looked back, and it's been really, really rewarding.
Wow. Well, first off, I appreciate you sharing this story. I mean, that's heavy, right? And I think that, one of the things that we hit it off on was this idea of breaking the taboo and breaking the notion of, what you're supposed to be versus who you are, right? And
Mhm.
huge shout out to Tab after our first call, sent me this handwritten note. And for anyone listening, yes, poop was talked about, and who cares? We're all just humans, right? And so it was one of the most, one of the most fascinating things though, Tabitha, when you think about this and you hear like there's people out there like that, and then you meet someone like yourself. And so I want to transition that from the personal side to what you're doing now on the professional side. And so, you go in as a recruiter, and that's a pretty dog eat dog world. It's a pretty competitive space. Do you feel like that experience that you've lived through has separated you from the pack in the way that you're communicating with folks? Or what has that been like sort of, post chemo and now that, where you're at right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I'm not the only recruiter out there, the only talent strategist out there that cares as much about people, or that has a story to tell. But I do think that I started leveraging my story in a very unique way, and talking about things that in a way that I'd never really heard other, recruiters maybe approach it. And then I started hearing, I was listening to my candidates and to the people that I was meeting, and I was hearing the same things over and over, like, you're different. I've never met anyone like you before. And those things for me started to really confirm that, okay, the way that I'm showing up, the way that I'm trying to help people, my beliefs, like those are all really, really good things and they're different. And so I started to lean even harder into those in that direction. Um, so part of what I do, and nowadays, especially where I am at ChenMed, is making our recruiters better, helping them tell compelling stories authentically. We're in a chaotic hypergrowth mode right now. So we need people that are energized by that. And if you go in and try to paint this rosy picture, um, that is a complete lie, I mean, you're doing yourself a disservice as a recruiter, as an organization, and then ultimately, and most importantly, you're doing a disservice to your future employees, to your potential candidates. So, leveraging that story and then really being okay with who I am and finding that internal peace, I think has just kind of collided
Yeah.
to make this really cool thing happen that's still unfolding and I'm still trying to figure it out. So
And I think what you talk about there, leaning into your own stories, maybe the most remarkable nugget that we'll take out of this. And I think so often, and I see this in my world, is there's a lot of imposter syndrome. There's a lot of folks that want to be something they're not. And we were having a conversation the other day, and I won't go down the rabbit hole too much, but I started thinking about there's 7 different groups of dogs, and each one was bred with a specific strain of DNA to execute on a specific function. And now that we've
Mhm.
eradicated that function, what do you do? Like, how do you find yourself? How do you become a home pet if, I'm meant to go herd sheep, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
curious from a people's lens, when evaluating to go into a hyper growth company, have you been leaning more into the candidate's skill set or who they are as a person and how good they tell that story? How do you divide the value there as you're starting to make these decisions and build an organization?
Gosh, that is such a good question. Oh my goodness. Because it can be, right? Some people are so good at storytelling that they can make, a boring resume just like really pop. They can talk about a skill set that, they can embellish. There's so many things, like, so it can be really hard to differentiate sometimes. And so one thing that I do, and I'll give people a little tip here, any recruiters or really anybody in sales, I mean, anybody that's having conversations with people, is I let them go first. Um, I ask them questions about what they're looking for, what energizes them, what their primary motivators are, and what are they looking to get out of their next opportunity. If it's money, let's talk about that and figure that out. If it's whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like if you're
Yeah.
mission driven, then let's figure that out. And I think just being a connector and that resource for people has been how I've been able to really tie that all together. Just know somebody for everything. You know what I mean? Have a solid network in place and people that you can turn to and that can turn to you. And so it's been a whole like slew of things that I think I can bring into this opportunity, especially here and now, to help differentiate that with candidates and help them be better though. Like maybe you're not a good fit for us right now, or maybe we realize that, hey, this is not a good fit for you in general. And so again, going back to the notion of trying to leave every interaction better than I found it, that is always my goal. I'm trying to make them better. If I see something on their resume, let's talk about it. Let me give you a little tip and a trick that will help you get more interviews. Or let me introduce you to somebody because you're really great and you do tell a great story and you do seem super self-aware. And but whatever the reason is, I think there's something for everyone out there. And I think the more self-aware we are and the more we can figure out what our story is and be accepting of that, the more alignment then we're going to find in our that professional side of our life.
Yo, you are dropping nuggets on nuggets right now. That's what I'm talking about. Now I think what's interesting to me, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is we see this notion of learning to tell your own story a little bit later in life, right? Like as we're coming through
Mhm.
grade school, as we're coming through university, it's really centric around telling someone else's story or learning and regurgitating. Do you see the paradigm shifting in the recruiting world that younger candidates are learning this skill set, or what does that look like inside the belly of the beast?
Oh, man, I'm so passionate about this. And it's like so disheartening sometimes because like I wish I had 75 arms and like a million of me, just to get out there and be able to do all the things I want to do. And part of what you've said and something I haven't gotten to really dive into as much is that student side of things. I have a whole nother opinion on, schooling. And now that my daughter is 6 and starting to get into that and just wanting her to learn differently. So, I just think that it needs to be more of a focus in whatever school that kids are going to. They need to be learning about resume skills and networking skills and involving themselves. Like if you're in high school, get on LinkedIn. You know what I mean? Like it, you're not going to get anything sitting back and waiting for it to all come to you. But sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
And so that is definitely a message I would love to continue to help spread is just to get parents involved, get the kids involved, and just really around education. Because I'm still seeing so many people, and unfortunately, it's not all students. I'm still seeing people that are like really, really far into their career who don't know how to represent themselves. They don't know how to tell a good story. They don't know how to put their skill sets and their accomplishments down on a piece of paper. And that's what I want to help people with.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's I think maybe we can save that for another episode. We'll take a deeper dive into that because it really goes to this notion of where I'm really curious, how you define this, but success is this, sort of floating term that everyone thinks that they want to be, and everyone has a different definition. And so, I mean, by all accounts of the word, Tabitha, I think you embrace what success looks like. But for someone who's had such a drastic change in perspective of life, I'm curious, did that change the way that you view success daily, monthly, and annually? Or how do you, sort of define that in your ecosystem?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I think about success, and as you said, as you evolve through life, what it looks like at one age might be like winning a state softball championship, and what it looks like now at 36 is completely different. And at the end of the day, what I've determined success is for myself is, again, being true to who I am and understanding that when I do take care of myself and I do invest in myself, that's not selfish, because that's going to ripple out to all the people that I love in my life. If I'm better, then naturally, like, I will pass that on to other people. So success for me is really like being committed, recommitted to the things that I love in this life. My family, my daughter, my job. I really do love it. And sometimes I feel so guilty. like, I'm having too much fun today, but I'm doing my job. But that's what it's all about. It's figuring out what your passions are, what your skill sets are, and then figure out what's transferable. I see too many people sitting stagnant in jobs they hate, and they think they're stuck, but they're not stuck. They just haven't figured out how to transfer that over into something else. I came from sales and marketing before this, and some will argue, and I will also argue, that in recruitment, it is sales, it is marketing, it is a mix of both. And if you're a good recruiter, that should definitely be on your radar. So for me, it seems like a very natural transition. But a lot of people are still like, how'd you do that? And they don't get it. So I want to help people get it, because when we're fulfilled at home, when we're fulfilled at work, then it all just goes like this, and there's no line, and it all, and my life isn't perfect. I'm not, just because I see me smile a lot, because I'm happy with myself, it doesn't mean that stuff's still not hard, sometimes. But yeah, I think that's success for me, really, is just being okay with who I am, and leaning into my gifts, I think, and being able to share those with everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, it takes one to know one here, where you just realize that this precious gift, these moments that we have, they're finite, and they're not here forever. And if you don't capitalize on them, then you just never know when you're going to get that change. And so, I mean, Tab, you bring joy, you bring prosperity, you push the needle. And I think, like everyone listening today, this is what the Remarkable Show is about, just to highlight people that are doing the right thing for the right reason. And so, I want to give a quick segment to ChenMed, what you guys are doing. You speak so highly of this company, you're happy. Let the listeners know what you're working on, what's the state of the union, just so that everyone can sort of identify with that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity, because, after cancer, I again was looking for purpose, and I had some really, really great opportunities getting into recruitment and on the agency side. And then I decided to go to the dark side, right? The dark side of in-house corporate recruitment. But it's been so amazing, and ChenMed is phenomenal. I mean, we are still growing, as I mentioned. We have got about 3,500 employees right now, and in the next 5 years, we're looking to get to about 10,000. And why that is so exciting is because that means we can rescue so many seniors, which is our target population and who we serve. So we are VIP, value-based care. We have a high-touch model that allows us to see our seniors about once every 17 days or as needed. And that preventative model helps us save lives. we were able to help save so many lives through COVID because our seniors trusted us and they trusted their care team. They trusted their physician. Um, and the last thing I'll say about it too is I love that our physicians give out their cell phone numbers. And to me, that just says something. Like when you trust your patients to do the right thing, just like when you trust your employees to do the right thing, I think most people won't abuse that. And so, Chen Med, I'm wearing rocking a shirt today. We're all about love, accountability, and passion. And we really do live and breathe those values every day. And I just, you know, transitioning into a new strategy space has been scary. A shout out to Heather Monahan, who talks about the line being very fine between fear and excitement, and trying to leverage a little bit of both to really just blow it up and change the world. And we're doing that with good people. And I'm really, really grateful to be here.
Remarkable. It is. And I think you hit on the word that, we'll just use COVID because it's a very timely example, but in society right now, I don't think we trust much of anything. And a lot of people see that as a negative, right? And I see this as a huge opportunity, because if you don't know what it's not like to trust, then you don't know what it's like to be in a trusted environment, right? And so so I have to see the bad in order to know what good is. And so we're in a very unique time right now, but this show is put in place to highlight and show people that there are not only people doing it the right way, there are corporations that are leaning in and truly putting people over everything and leveraging this awesome asset that we have as a vehicle here. And so, Tab, this has been just an absolute treat. I think we could stay on the line and talk forever, but
we already know we can.
Oh, I know. I mean, our first conversation was off the charts. But before we wrap, Tab, give listeners what's on the horizon for the rest of 2021, whether that's personal, LinkedIn strategies, podcast, Chen Med, anything that you want the listeners to know. This is your time to give a subtle plug.
Oh man, that's so generous. I appreciate that. Yeah, there's always a lot. Like my brain never stops. So for now, I'm continuing to grow my community on LinkedIn, maybe some behind the scenes things happening, new website, things coming along with Strong Ass Mindset, which I know we didn't talk about today, but that's okay. Something that's continuing to grow. So I'm very passionate about that. But yeah, the rest
Hold on. Time out. You can't dangle a carrot of hashtag strong ass mindset and say, oh, we didn't talk about it. Yo, the show's not over. What the hell is strong ass mindset? You got to give everyone a little taste of that.
So, a lot of people think it's cancer related, and it does kind of have that pun in there. But all in all, a strong ass mindset is something that I've been developing in myself and trying to also in my family over the last few years since cancer. And for me, it's all about equipping yourselves, myself right now, but everyone equipping themselves with the tools to be excited by our challenges, because life happens. We all have stuff that goes on sometimes on a daily basis that can feel like, and it can be so overwhelming. But things like losing my job, being laid off when I was 6 months pregnant, right after I bought my first house, that was insane. But on the flip side, it allowed me to spend the first 6 months at home with my daughter, which I wouldn't have gotten otherwise. From there, I became a nanny, oddly enough, because I wanted to bring my daughter to work with me, and I refused to go back to work without her. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, but financially it didn't work. So I became a nanny. I brought her to work with me. Then I got cancer and had to quit those jobs, but it was like everything just like kept happening for a reason. I may have continued to be a nanny, which God bless the people out there that can do that and that are gifted in that space. But I guess that wasn't my calling. That wasn't where I was meant to be. So a strong ass mindset is all about that. It's about leveraging, your unique gifts, not being afraid to share them with other people, because when you're not, you're really robbing them of why you were put here, the things that you were gifted with in your own unique way. So that is a little bit more about strong ass mindset, and more to come there, but it's been a passion project of mine, and something I'm really, really excited about.
I think that'll resonate. It'll ring home with just about everyone that listens to this podcast. And you know, to grow Tab's following, hashtag strong ass mindset, drop it on LinkedIn. It's a hell of a community. You know, but it's neat to see these interest groups around people that are thinking the same way as us. And you know, when you
Yeah.
get even just 3 or 4 on a screen, never mind when you get 300 or 400 together, I mean, real movements happen. And so be sure, if you embrace what Tab just talked about there, hashtag strong ass mindset. So Tab, love what you're doing, love who you are as a person and what you bring to this world. I'm gonna let you take us home, and this is my last question for you. So if you could tell the listeners one thing that you've done in your life that you would recommend they do or experience in theirs, what would that be and why?
Oh, I would just say don't be afraid to try something new. And it seems very simple, but every single day when I think about like who I'm going to meet or who might need me in their life or whatever it might be, I just think if I could just stay open to always trying something new and the opportunities that come along, that I think has been really a part of making my story remarkable, because it's not that I say yes to everything, but I say yes to the right things, and the right things come along because I stay open to everything. So yeah, I think that's how I'd like to leave it. But I also want to shout you out because you're amazing. And I am so pumped for the future of our relationship and what you have, because you are something special. And thank you for bringing your unique gifts into this world.
Wow, you're gonna make me start blushing. This is crazy. I really appreciate the sentiment there. And you know, listeners, if you have a remarkable story to tell, like Tabitha, reach out to us. We'd love to feature you. But this is the essence of the show. It's not all about business. It's not all about family. It's about us as humans. And so, you know, Tab, you embrace it all. Everybody, be sure to keep tuning in. Follow The Remarkable Show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Be sure to follow us and keep doing remarkable things, making remarkable impact. We'll catch everyone next time.